And good morning. Good morning to session 1, common money marketing and mindset mistakes that can cripple your business growth. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Anne-Marie Cross. I'm known as the podcasting queen. And this is session 1 of a 5-part session that I'm going to be running this week. Now, many of you may be here thinking, well, we know Anne-Marie is the podcasting queen. What on earth has money, marketing, and mindset got to do with starting a podcast, going from influential to profitable and impactful with your podcast? And to that, I say it has absolutely everything to do with setting up your own podcast, particularly if you're a service-based business owner and you're wanting to build influence, you're wanting to build reach, you're wanting to build your reputation as that authority in your field. So one of the things that I love to do when I'm working with clients is really see before they start their podcast, are these things in place? Because if not, then there's a bit of work that we need to do to be able to help these people catch up, make sure they've got these key foundations in place. So I wanted to do this series because I know many of you are thinking, towards the end of the year, you may already have a podcast and it's not generating the results that you want. Maybe there's a couple of things that you can see there's a gap in your strategy, or maybe you don't have a strategy. So hopefully through today's session and obviously the other 4 sessions, you'll be able to pinpoint what needs to be put in place. And of course, if you're thinking of starting your own Thought Leader podcast in 2020, then you'll want to make sure that you have these things in place so that you can begin to leverage the increased reach, the increased visibility, and be able to nurture those listeners into leads and ultimately paying customers. Now, I've decided to stream live across all of my different platforms because I can, and using this incredible tool called StreamYard. If you haven't heard of it already, please go ahead and do that. Check that out. But I also wanted to let you know that I did this for the community that we have over on Facebook. If you're not yet part of that community, bit.ly/pod tribe with a capital P, capital T. But go and register because I've got a work guide that accompanies this 5 sessions, and you want to make sure that you take as many notes as you can so that you can go back and ensure that you've got those these things that we're going to be talking about today and the subsequent days in place. AnneMarieCross.com/5, the number 5 day masterclass. There's the link there. So go ahead and make sure you register. I do believe that it's also in the comments section, so you can go and get access to that if you haven't already got that. All right, let's dive in. Today, as I mentioned, we're talking about common money marketing mindset mistakes that can cripple your business growth. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing a money boost. And this is where I'll be talking about the system and the model that'll take you from underpaid commodity to highly paid authority. So you want to make sure that you come back tomorrow to be able to ensure that you've got the system and model in place. In the next session, we'll be talking about a marketing boost, and that marketing boost is must-do strategies that you have to have in place to be able to stand out, to be able to be heard, and to be able to become that authority in your industry, that industry thought leader. And then lastly, we're going to have a money mindset boost, particularly around 3 critical shifts that'll help you go from invisible to influential. And so many people I speak to who really are already experts, they've got a body of knowledge and expertise, but they're just not generating the outcomes that they want, sadly are crippled because of these mindsets. And so I want to cover that. And then we're going to finish that off by really helping you to have in place the foundations and the process that enable you to create a sustainable and scalable business. So got a lot of content. We're going to dive in. Now, I know that there's an opportunity for you to write comments and ask questions. Go ahead and do that. I'll be popping back later and checking in. At the moment, I'm just going to go into some teaching, some sharing insights. So I'm not necessarily going to be able to communicate with you while I'm live, but I certainly will go back and answer any questions or, answer any comments that you have here. All right, make sure you've got your guide next to you because we're going to be talking about some of the money mistakes that I see people make that will stop them from becoming that thought leader and then being able to monetize that. I'm just going to take this banner off. Done that. You know what we're going to be talking about today. And let me just hide that. Fantastic. Good. So the first money mistake, and here's where you get your pen out to write it in your work guide, is that people don't have a clear business model. They don't have IP, so intellectual property, and they don't have any simple systems to be able to support them in beginning to grow a sustainable business. And so, when you're thinking about a clear business model, I mean, obviously, for many of the clients that I work with, they're service-based business owners. How are you going to generate income from your expertise, from the service that you provide? And often what I see is some of the mistakes in not having a clear business model. What we tend to do is we charge by the hour. And I remember years ago, and I came up through the personal branding. I was in the career industry for many, many years, and I started off working with executives and professionals, helping them to stand out, be heard, and become known as that go-to person in the workplace, but also be paid what they're worth for their roles. And so one of the things that I would do was charge by the hour, or, writing a resume for people, because obviously you've got to document your expertise, the value you've offered a particular organization. And so I remember back then I would charge per resume. And so people would ring me and say, well, how much do you charge? And it was a very awkward conversation, because let's face it, many of us, especially when we're starting off in our business, the topic of money and sales, well, I don't know about you, but that was something that I certainly tried to avoid. And then what would happen is I would state a price or my fee, and then someone would say to me, oh, really? Well, I can get it done for $25 at the local secretarial practice. Now, nothing wrong with the secretarial practice. They can certainly type up a document. However, I had gone and undergone various training, been certified as a professional resume writer, had won a number of awards, was on a committee that certified global resume writers. So, there was a lot of expertise in what I offered, but I wasn't able to share that. I wasn't able to get that across in conversations, and I struggled. And so I didn't have a business model that would allow me to offer different programs, different packages, that was really wrapped around the outcome my clients would achieve through investing and working with me. And I think that's where so many of us as service-based business owners, when we haven't taken a step back, look at the business model. What am I going to offer? What is the IP? What is the unique steps that I take my clients through to be able to get paid what I'm worth, deliver incredible value, and ultimately support my clients in generating the outcome? And of course, systems are so important too, because you get to a stage in your business where you're often trying to do a lot of things on your own, and you're juggling a lot of to-dos on your to-do list. Yet you get to a stage where if you're not systematizing things, you're not able to bring team on board, whether it be, part-time, casual, per project. And so we can really, really struggle. So that is a money mistake. No clear business model, IP, or simple systems. We're going to dive into those a little bit more tomorrow, how that might look like. So if you recognize that you're doing one or more of these things, don't let that beat you up. That can often be what we do too, isn't it? We can look at ourselves and go into judgment. There's no blame or shame around this. In fact, celebrate it, because it means that you've now got clarity around an area where you can then go and continue to build that out so that that can support you in growing your business. So the second money mistake that I want to talk to you about today, and again, get your pen out and write it down in the work guide, is working on the right tactics, but at the wrong time. So working on the right tactics at the wrong time. And I have been doing this for many, many years. If I look back, Inside is a wonderful teacher. And I tell you what, if there's any mistakes to be made in business, I reckon I've made a lot of them. In fact, probably all of them, which is why I'm now able to share the right way to do things. So the right tactics at the wrong time. What do I mean by that? There are so many marketing experts, business experts that are sharing their knowledge, and it's great knowledge. It is things that, when we implement in our business, it can really help us grow our business. But what isn't part of their training and teaching, and this is something that you need to really consider, is where am I at in my business? What stage of growth am I in my business? And does what they're teaching fit the entirety in my business structure and my model? And often the case is no, it doesn't. And I'm a bit of a rule breaker. So if someone says you need to do it this way, I go, let me just check and see if that's the right thing. So you need to look at different strategies and ask yourself, is this right for me now? Or do I need to have other things in place first before I can do this tactic, before I can really leverage the best results from implementing this? And for some of you, you really need to change, adapt to suit your business and the outcome that you want, because, adopting this particular strategy exactly how it's being taught is just not going to fit you and your business model. And you may very well end up creating a business that you end up hating, and that's the worst thing that we want to do, because I know as many business owners, particularly the people that I work with, they're change makers. They want to make a bigger impact in the world with their message and the work that they do. Yet if you create a business that you will eventually want to run and hide from, then you're certainly not doing yourself any favors or your clients, the people, prospective clients, the clients that you can support. But the business that you've created has become a burden for you, and you're not going to be at your best. So, sometimes when I have a look at podcasting, I've had clients or prospective clients that have come to me and said, well, we want to launch a podcast because we've heard that it's going to build our reach. We need to get our message out there. And that's fine. Yeah, podcasting will work. Fantastic. But when I have a look at some of the things we're going to talk about in the next number of sessions together, I could see that they were just not going to be able to leverage all of the additional publicity and visibility and be able to turn that into paying customers, because they didn't have all these things in place. And so I recommended that they put a stop on their podcast launch, go back, get really clear on the things that we're going to talk about, so that then when they launch their podcast is elevating a clear message. It's sharing a clear message that is going to position them as an authority and ultimately compel those clients or prospective clients who are ready to make a decision that, yes, this person's the right person to work with, that those people will step forward. So maybe you're working on the right tactic, but at the wrong time for your business. And, that, again, is going to be different for everyone. The third mistake, a money mistake that I see, is putting all of your eggs in one basket. Putting all of your eggs in one basket. What do I mean by that? Well, I think as business owners, it's important that we had multiple streams of income. But, and I say that, it doesn't mean that you have to have the multiple streams of income in place at the one time, because you will stretch yourself too thin. So maybe you're launching something, launch it till it works really well. I remember, and it's generating you income before you decide to do something else. Now, I'll put my hand up to be the first to admit that I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I get bored very easily. I'll get things in place. I'll create programs and products. I'll launch it once and I go, next. And that's not doing us any favors. We need to relaunch. We need to get more clients through and build it into something that's sustainable. And we don't need to do a lot of the work at the front end, because that's already been done before we shift and do something else. And so, there are going to be times in business when you have a look and track your year, that there are times of the year where a product or service that you're offering makes more sense. And so when you then look at the off season, then you need to ask yourself, well, what other income can I start to generate through that is going to bolster my income to be able to support me through those quiet times? If I think of my daughter, who's got an incredible business, she's a personal trainer, but also nutritionist. She can see that in wintertime, it drops off a little bit, the group programs that she runs. However, going towards summer, again, people are coming out of the woodwork, out of their homes, thinking, hey, I need to start getting fit and healthy for summertime. So she sees more of an influx. So then she's looked at her business model and said, well, how can I spread that out? Do different offerings, and I know that I need to market at this particular time. So she's put together a strategy that supports her through that time. So there's no ebb and flow. So, make sure you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. Something else that I see often too is that there may be a time where you're working with one particular client, which is exciting, particularly if that particular client generates a lot of income through the year for you. But what you need to be mindful of is that particular client and the time that you spent with that client, particularly service-based businesses, is not taking up the most percentage of your business. Because what happens if that client loses their funding? What happens if that client decides, you know what, we're going to go in another direction, or whatever the case may be? All of a sudden, you have got a massive gaping hole in your income. So you consistently need to be thinking of different ways on how can you diversify your income and make sure that, you know, you're not putting all of your eggs in one basket. In that instance is the client. Something else that you want to consider, I mean, I'm just touching the surface in this, but because I really just want you to get that insight and think, aha, I know that I need to avoid that, or that's happening to us. We need to get into problem-solving mode, which we love as entrepreneurs. How can we go through that? What can we do differently to ensure that this does not become a barrier or a block in our business? And the last thing that I want to talk about, you know, putting all your eggs in one basket, is being so, what's the word I'm looking for? So focused on your industry, which is really, really very important if you want a niche and you want to become known as that thought leader, but you're not consistently looking at what the industry is doing, what consumer behavior is doing, the different shifts. Because I think as business owners, we need to be mindful and have that foresight on what's happening in the industry and be willing and able to shift with market requirements, with market expectations, with their demands. And so we see, you know, many businesses and whole industries that have gone out of business because they haven't kept their finger on the pulse and looked at what was happening. And they were so solid in their business, like Kodak, you know, film, and then digital cameras came in. They were so certain of, you know, the placement and their positioning in the market that I think they avoided, you know, looking at, well, what we need to change and shift our business model and offerings. So just be very, very mindful to always keep your finger on the pulse. And then that may be an opportunity for you to start to shift. You know, what can we still do as part of our service offerings, but shift a little bit to be able to expand on so that we can tap into where we can see the market going. So as a business owner, I think you need to be very mindful about that. So those are the three money mistakes: not being clear on your business model, not having a clear IP that you can brand. And often that becomes very much what positions you in the marketplace, your IP, or simple systems to help you build that sustainable and scalable business as you're continuing to grow. We always need to systematize so that as business owners, we don't become the block. Who here has been a block in their business? I know I certainly have. In fact, if there's any block as business leaders or anything going on in our business, even if it is to do with team or whatever, guess what? It's our responsibility because it's our business. So we need to step up. Systems will help you. Working on the right tactics, but at the wrong time, putting all your eggs in one basket. Those are the money mistakes that I wanted to share with you today. The marketing mistakes, let's dive into those. Being seen as a jack of all trades and a master of none. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, I am definitely what I would call a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I love bright and shiny new objects, new technology. You know, if there's something new, I will be diving in there. But one of the greatest lessons that I learned many years ago was I give myself permission to now, but only if it's going to still enable me to keep moving towards the vision, the mission, the goals that I have set myself. If it is a complete distraction from my message and where I want to position myself, then it's a no or a not yet. So, you know, for you, you may be offering different services, but what you need to do is look at, is there one vision? Is there one motto? Is there one outcome that I'm able to share with clients, but offer different services? So what I did in the career industry, I just didn't do resumes. I just didn't do jobs, you know, search coaching or interview coaching or career coaching or working with someone who's just transitioned into a new workplace to be able to hit the ground running and become far more productive as far as their performance in the workplace, far quicker by understanding their personalities and the environments in which they best worked. There's a lot of different services in that, and it seems a little bit eclectic, doesn't it? However, what I did was have that one motto, that one umbrella of get noticed, get hired, get paid what you are worth. And so it fit under that umbrella of outcomes, but with these different service offerings. And often, if you're not clear on how it all fits together, then it's going to be very difficult for you to communicate that in your messaging, in your branding. And so you need to get clear about how all these things fit under that one umbrella and that one slogan, that one statement or that outcome. Because if you can't understand that and see that, then it's going to be very difficult for your customers or prospective customers. And for some of you, you may become that master of doing a number of different things. There's a benefit in that. And I used to say, to clients, you won't have to go to multiple different service providers. We'll be able to work right the way through from getting you positioned, understanding what is your ideal customer or employer. It's same principles, different pathway, if you will, and be able to support you right the way through without you having to bring other people within the relationship. And so, there's ways that you can communicate that as being a benefit, as an outcome. But again, you need to get clear. So are you seen as a jack of all trades and a master of none? It's very difficult to be seen as that high paid authority. Someone wants to work with you if they can't really see the overall clear value that you're offering. All right, so that's the first mistake. The second mistake is marketing to the masses. And I'm sure you've heard before, you need to niche, or niche, depending on which part of the world that you are in. And that's a conversation that so many people have had over so many years. And it's so very important, because if your message speaks to everyone, it speaks to no one. Because you haven't tapped into the psyche of your ideal client. You haven't tapped into, what keeps him or her up at night. You haven't identified what solution he or she is looking for, which means you're not really speaking and built into that issue or challenge. You're not building rapport. You're not giving hope of, possibility for them. You're not speaking into that because you're speaking to everyone and it's too broad. So, particularly when you're just getting started, you need to be very mindful. And I say to people, it doesn't mean that you have to be one thing all of the time, but you do need to be that one thing and go deep and go narrow and deep, particularly when you are building your reputation as that thought leader or as that authority in your field. And then what you can do is once you've penetrated the market and people do you see for that, then you can slightly shift and add more value, often to the clients that you're already working with, because who better than to determine where you want to position your business and the products and programs you offer than your existing clients. They'll often let you know. Anyway, so don't try and market to the masses, niche. And I often talk about, I haven't got time today, but talk about, the demographics of your ideal client, but also the psychographics. Now, whilst some people, and it depends on their buying patterns and the triggers that they need or the answers that they need, some people might need more specific information. Some of the, the technology, the fine, clear points, the statistics, those things, what the components of your product. Some people are very interested in that, and you need to share that. However, people will often build or will invest in you because of emotion and because of the promise of value, because they can see you've built that integrity, you've built that rapport with them. They can see when they are investing in themselves through working with you and hiring you, that they're going to be able to achieve the outcome, because you've got the steps to be able to support them and make in avoiding all of the mistakes and speeding things up and getting to their outcome far quicker and with a lot less heartache. So those are the things that you need to be communicating in all of the messaging that you're putting. So don't market to the masses. We're going to do a little bit of, in the next couple of sessions, on niching, giving you some ideas and getting clarity around that, because I know many people can struggle with that. And the last marketing mistake is thinking that you need to be everywhere, but your message, it's just not relevant. Is your message relevant? And yes, you need to be everywhere if you can. One of the things, I just went to a conference and one of the marketers there, and I agree with it, says, look, start off with a couple of platforms first, and then broaden your reach, market and get real process of documenting that journey and their life story. For some people, you still need to deal with it and heal with it before you reveal it to the world. So just be mindful about what you're documenting. Make sure that it's positioning you as that expert. So yeah, document, but only if you're clear, you've got clarity and you've got these core foundations in place. Otherwise, where you should be documenting that is in a journal, a private journal that you'll use as you continue to get clarity and move through that. I remember years ago, I had one of the worst business failure was a partnership that I've ever had in my business life. And I'd worked through that, was still working through that. And one of my colleagues says, you know what, I love the way that you've bounced back. You're resilient, but there's a reason why, because I went out and I hired myself a high-level mentor around mindset, because I knew that if I did not deal with it and heal with it, it was going to plague me for the rest of my business. And I did not want to go through jaded in my dealings with other people, because I lead with trust, because that's just important to me. And I treat others how I expect to be treated, with trust and with integrity. And I remember my colleague saying, I want you to share that. And I went about, said, yeah, sure, I'm happy to share. And my coach at that time said, don't. You're still moving through that, Anne-Marie. But once you've gone through that, then you can share your story, because you've dealt with it, you've healed from it. Now you can reveal the things that lessons that you learned and insights. And so for some of you, you're just not ready to document yet. So make sure you are clear and it is relevant and it is valuable to customers, and it's not spreading your message too thin, and actually you're documenting your master of none, because one day you're talking about this and the next day you're talking about that. And everything you put out there, everything that you share, every conversation that you contribute to or don't contribute to, everything, all your interactions and your actions speak your brand, your personal brand, builds your reputation. And it can either position you as that authority, that influential voice, or it can sadly do the opposite. And I don't want that happening to you. All right, let's have a look at some of the unhelpful mindsets that you need to deal with. And there's 7 that I've identified over the years, but 3 I want to talk about today. And the first is self-doubt. Self-doubt. I've read a number of different articles and podcast episodes around self-doubt. Doubt will take you out, especially if you start looking at what everyone else is doing. In fact, don't look at what everyone else is doing, because you have not been privy to their background or what they're doing, and they're not privy to what you've been doing either. And so I think when we spend too much time focusing on what other people are doing, we neglect or negate the gifts, the talents, the strengths, the journeys, the challenges we've overcome, the resilience that we've built. And when you integrate that within all of the message that you're portraying and in the experience that you create when someone is working with you, then that is so unique. And you cannot gather that information by staring at what everyone else is doing. And you certainly can't step up confidently, not arrogantly. We're not talking about being prideful or arrogant, but doing so confidently because you know who you are. You know that the value you offer your clients. And so, by looking at what everyone else is doing, or even doubting that what you have to give is going to take you out. So just be mindful of that. Don't doubt, but rather be confident and take little steps, and often listen out for who is in your community, those people that are going to lift you up and speak positivity into your life. And borrow their thinking of you and their ideas about you as you're building your own confidence in what you do. So is doubt taking you out? Doubt can often have you playing small or not at all. And, often what I'll do is I'll jump into something and I'll say yes, and then you figure it out later. It's all good. It's all good. We're all trying to figure it out anyway as we go along, but doubt is going to take you out. The second unhelpful mindset is self-discrimination. This is when we put the bar so high perfection, i.e. how many recovering perfectionists do we have here, put the bar so high, there is just no possible way you will ever achieve that. And often when I ask my clients, would you have those similar expectations for your spouse, for your children, for your business partner, or for any other person, your friends, people who you hold near and dear? And of course they wouldn't. Well, why would you put so much, pressure and discriminate against yourself if you would not do that for other people? And I think often what happens is when we put that bar too high, of course we're going to set ourselves up for failure. So just be mindful. Be gentle on yourself. I love it. I have a saying that I'll often remind myself of, give yourself the space and the grace to be kind to yourself. If I look back, and this is the third unhelpful mindset and something that I would struggle with, that's self-disempowerment. And this is where we look at our failures and we go, you know what, I failed again. And now I celebrate your failures, because it means you've now identified a way not to do it. If you're brave enough to, courageous to, and I encourage you to do this, pack it, tear it apart, look at what happened, because there's going to be aspects of what you did that you want to do again. You want to tweak, you want to change, so that rather than completely, what we often do is we sweep it under the carpet. I'm a failure. That didn't work. It works for everyone else. And it feeds into the self-doubt and the self-discrimination. So just be mindful of that. And often when I'm speaking to business owners, they're ashamed of their failure. Yet, again, if you've dealt with it and you've got some key insights, hindsight and insights about what you would have done differently, the choices that you would have made far sooner, maybe the choices that you did make, but they were the wrong choices. And now knowing what you'd make different choices. Every single failure, I believe, and you've heard this before, so I'm not saying anything new. However, it's maybe new for you because hopefully the penny will drop this time and you go, you know what? Yeah, it's right. I need to start looking at those failures as opportunity to learn from, and opportunities to share in your journey and your insights and your story for other people, for other people who may be going through similar things. If I think back to in the career days, and a lot of what I teach now, I draw upon from when I was working in the industry of the career consulting. And that is because as human beings, it doesn't matter whether we're in a career, doesn't matter if we're an entrepreneur or a business owner. We have similar behavior, we have similar things that will take us out. And when you look at the mindset around that and the strategies, different place, different person, but similar strategies. And what I would often see people when they hated their roles, they say, hate my job. What is it that you hate about? I hate everything. Everything? Yeah, everything. And I'd say, well, if you're courageous enough or you're curious enough, let's just unpack that and see what you mean by you hate your job. All right, so then we would kind of look at the day or look at the week. What did you do? So do you hate that? Well, actually, don't hate that. I quite enjoy that. Okay, so let's just put that over to you enjoyed that. What about this? Yep, hate doing that. Okay, we'll put that over. You don't like doing that. And when we look at all of the different components of what they need to do through the day or week, they see that there's a portion of tasks that they do quite enjoy doing and others they don't. And so, similarly in business, when you are failing, when you start to look at, well, what was it? What were the steps that led up to failure? What did we not have in place? And I think often the challenges that we overcome when we allow ourselves, that's the grace and space to grow from that, those challenges develop the character in us that we will need for the next season of our business, because we are far more discerning. We are far more able to make clearer decisions when we allow ourselves the opportunity to look at failures. And be able to talk about that. Don't be shameful. Every one of us has got a failure. In fact, one of the podcast interviews that I did was of a company that I believe, if I'm correct, were on their 8th iteration of their business. Might have even been more, 8 or 12, one of those. But can you imagine if they've given up on their 2nd time or on their 3rd time or their 4th, their 5th? I mean, there's so many different cases that we know about of businesses who are now successful, but it is on the back of decades, on the back of many, many failures. And so, if we look at what other people are doing and they are successful, and we use that, say, we just use again that discrimination, say, well, we should be there, we should be doing that. Yeah, but that you don't see all of the heartache, all of the struggles, all of the learnings, all of those things that have gone on behind the scenes. And sometimes as business owners, we need to go through that ourselves too. So please don't let self-disempowerment, I failed again, your failures, keep you stuck from getting out there and continuing to make the impact that you want. All right, so I want to try and keep these to about half an hour each. So I want to ask you, when you think back, and for some of you, you might be listening to the replay or watching the replay, add your comments there, become part of our community over on Facebook, bit.ly/pod, P-O-D, tribe, capital P, capital T. Now, it doesn't matter if you don't want to have a podcast. That's fine. You can still become part of that community because we've got a lot of people there that are also change makers and who want to make a bigger impact in the world. So get over there. We can continue the discussion, or whatever platform that you are in or on. And look forward to hearing the ahas that you've had. But whatever you have recognized as an area, again, don't use that to discriminate, to beat yourself up, but rather an opportunity, something on your to-do list to work through. We need to have a meeting with our team, or if you're the team, you have to have a meeting with yourself, block out some time, and then ask yourself, what do I need to do? What do I need to do first? And build those foundations. Because one of the things that I have learned to be true, that when you're a business owner, when you're an entrepreneur, there are going to be a lot of challenges. There are going to be a lot of problems, a lot of failure in your horizon. But if you look at those failures as opportunities, you can identify sometimes before they even happen, and then you can shift. You can do something differently, but you'll bounce back. You'll bounce back stronger. You'll bounce back more resilient. You'll bounce back more whatever it is that you'll need to grow from that. And that is going to help you continue to build that momentum that you need to grow your business, whatever business that you are in. So if you haven't yet downloaded the work guide, go ahead and do that so that when you join me in the next number of sessions, you'll be able to do that and write down all of those things. This is where you can get that work guide, annemariecross.com/5 with the number 5-day masterclass. And you can download the workbook. And then, of course, go back and take notes from today's session. But tomorrow we're talking about a money boost, the system, the model that'll take you from underpaid commodity to highly paid authority. Now, we don't want to be seen as a commodity. Just like the example that I gave you with someone ringing me up when I was in the career industry, how much do you charge for a resume? And my packages were sometimes, $2,000 plus. $2,000+ for a resume, but it included so much more, personality profiles and updated LinkedIn profiles and all sorts of other things. But they were comparing me to a $25 resume that a secretarial service. Nothing, as I said, don't want to put out or put down secretarial service. That's fantastic if you just want to document that types up your experience. But if you want to get paid what you're worth, if you want to go to the top of the pile with your resumes, if you want to be able to negotiate a salary package that adds $20,000, and in some instances, some of my clients quadrupled their salary package. Sounds insane, but it absolutely is true, because through that package and working with me, they were able to really position themselves as that valuable player. And so, again, that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow, the system and the model. So come back and join me, and I look forward to reading your comments. And if we're not yet connected, reach out, and I'd certainly love to hear more about who you are and what you do in your business. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.